It was supposed to be just another political roundtable. The kind where bold headlines are made, but no real change follows. Broadcast live across major networks, the discussion was centered around poverty, the housing crisis, and the growing disconnect between politicians and the people they represent. On one side of the table sat California Governor Gavin Newsom, polished, confident, and sharp-tongued. Across from him sat John F. Kennedy Jr., quiet at first, measured in demeanor, with a gaze that spoke more than his words did. The moment came mid-discussion. Newsom leaned forward, eyes locked on Kennedy, and in a tone laced with accusation, said, "With all due respect, John, you're completely out of touch with what everyday Americans are going through. You come from legacy, from privilege, from the safety of wealth most people will never touch. How can someone like you possibly understand the average family living paycheck to paycheck?" The room went still. You could feel the tension in the silence. Cameras zoomed in. The audience shifted in their seats. On social media, the moment was already being clipped and shared. It was a bold shot and it landed. At least, that's what everyone thought, but then, Kennedy leaned in. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't go on the defensive. Instead, he started with a story. "I was 14 when I lost my father, not to politics, not to policy, but to a bullet. The world watched it happen. I grew up with a name everyone recognized, but I also grew up with loss, confusion, and a constant spotlight I never asked for. I've eaten at state dinners, and I've also spent nights staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd ever be more than a legacy." He paused, scanning the room. "Yes, I've been fortunate. I won't deny that. I own homes, plural, but I've also walked into shelters as a volunteer and sat with veterans who can't get basic care. I've stood in soup kitchens beside single mothers and listened, really listened, to their stories. And here's what I've learned. Being in touch isn't about your bank account, it's about your heart." The crowd fell silent. Even Newsom seemed slightly caught off guard. But Kennedy wasn't done. "You criticize me for being born into wealth, but let's be honest, how many people at this table are willing to give up their perks, their pensions, their motorcade? I've spent the last year visiting the most neglected parts of this country. Not with a camera crew, not for a photo op, but to learn, to shut up and listen. And if we really want to fix what's broken, maybe we should stop attacking each other and start confronting the systems that keep people poor in the first place." By the time Kennedy finished, you could feel a shift in the air. Not because it was some rehearsed political performance, but because it was real. It wasn't a rebuttal. It was a reflection, one that touched a nerve far deeper than party lines or campaign strategies. Later that week, the moment exploded online, but not in the usual political firestorm kind of way. People shared clips, not for outrage, but for inspiration. Veterans, single parents, college students, and even lifelong critics of the Kennedy name commented things like, "For once, someone spoke like a human being, not a politician." Gavin Newsom, to his credit, later addressed the moment. "Maybe I went too far," he admitted in a follow-up interview. "Maybe we're all guilty of judging before listening." The exchange became a defining moment, not just in Kennedy's political journey, but in a national conversation about empathy, leadership, and the dangerous assumption that wealth always equals disconnection. Because here's the truth, empathy isn't exclusive to the poor, and arrogance isn't exclusive to the rich. Being in touch isn't about what you have, it's about how you show up for others, especially when there's nothing in it for you. Kennedy's words reminded a divided country that while experience shapes us, compassion defines us. And sometimes, the most powerful clapbacks don't come from anger or ego, but from raw honesty that dares to tell the truth no matter how inconvenient it may be.